Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1011 of our daily content streak, and today we are doing another, I guess this is top 10 Tuesdays now, because we're going to be keeping these on Tuesdays until we're caught up enough on the best Transformers of the year to where we can kind of give it a break. But for now, we're on a weekly schedule, and this week we're in 1998. We are neck deep in the Transmetals. We're getting a few appearances from characters who won't be around until Season 3, because that started late to 1998. However, we now have to pay attention to the Takara side of things, because if it didn't get used in the cartoon, it got used in Beast Wars 2nd over in Japan, where they were joined by a few brand new Japanese exclusive molds that we are going to have to consider. Now, for the sake of keeping this simple, we are going to stick to the American decos of these toys. Even if I'm using a Takara figure for the example, we're not going to do like which side of the ocean had the better deco here. We're just going to focus on the toy and the overall presentation, and then if a brand new mold is in Japan, we consider that too, and there will be a few on the list. So, with all that said, let's take a look at the best Transformers of 1998, starting, of course, at number 10, and this is going to be pretty intense. Like, this is going to be a pretty solid list when you realize that we have to start it off with Transmetal Rat Trap. See, this is already a really, really good toy, but this is just how strong of a year 1998 was. There's a lot of really good toys, and it really is just like the whim of the day that determines what ended up on this list. You might even see some inconsistencies with my my ranking list on the Beast Wars toys, because there's just so much good to talk about. Rat Trap himself is a very back-heavy figure. Admittedly, not a whole lot of him transforms into his robot mode. That said, it does present an interesting transformation that is still fun. The toy itself does look fantastic in both modes. It's a really cool look, but also, it's just a fun vehicle mode. Transmetals didn't really do a whole lot of like really intricate vehicle modes for their third form, but Rat Trap does try and go out of his way to do a really special job of just making a four-wheeled rat. The addition of the exhaust pipes in the back just adds a lot of character to that, and it just presents an overall really fun toy to mess with. I think this toy is something of an engineering miracle in the fact that it can actually stand up despite how heavy of a backpack it has. So I will give credit where credit's due. That I did not expect. But it's still a toy that holds up pretty well, assuming yours still has its chrome. That's another caveat. But to start off this list, I think this is a really strong way. I think this is a really strong toy, and we're just starting. One thing about this year is that the Transmetal toys are so strong between their interesting look and their third mode dynamic and play pattern that it really does overshadow the Fusors, who admittedly just come up short as far as play value and visual impact despite the weird, and interesting aesthetics they have. So they're really going to get overshadowed in 1998, but we have to throw in at least one, and for bang for your buck, just for getting a cool toy for the price, I want Quick Strike on this list. This is just a cool figure. Okay, for starters, we're reusing the Scorpion, but we're doing it differently from Scorponok to the point where it is a very different style of figure. And then, yeah, the Cobra, snakes being a thing that would be very difficult in Beast Wars. It'd be a while before Takara figured one out. But it's a cool way of incorporating a snake in, and as a replacement for the Scorpion tail, perfect. Also, the articulation in that snake neck, all of those ball joint links in order to give it just like all the motion you could ever want, both as an arm and as a serpent. This is fantastic. And then you just get that super creepy grabber hand with the bug legs. Probably one of the best uses of the bug legs a Beast Wars toy has had. Yes, a lot of the beast kibble and junk ends up in the arms as a result, but the rest of the robot looks pretty clean. And yeah, despite the clear plastic thing, still looks very, very good. I'll give them credit. The clear plastic from back then seems to hold up better, because mine is still completely intact. Mileage may vary on that one. Oh, and I believe you got a water squirter gimmick in this one on top of all of that, so nice of that to end up in the basic class size. It's just a good toy all around. Like, just for something that was $5 back in the day, yes, I cry over it too. This was a really, really solid toy. Let's move our way up to the larger scales now, because there's a few characters in here that, again, you would associate them with final year Beast Wars, even though they just crept out toward the end of 1998, and that includes Depth Charge. I know for a lot of you he should be higher on this list. Hear me out. So yes, the toy itself is very, very cool. The Manta Ray mode, we had a very large drought of aquatic Beast Wars toys, so it was really, really nice to actually get a very good and very large one. The visual look of the wings is really, really cool in robot mode. The vehicle mode actually does have some aspects of a space vehicle. It's very like Star Wars style in the way it's presented. And yes, the disc launching gimmick is a pretty cool one. The fact that the whole thing is basically like a trigger gun for shooting discs. Cool way of using the extra beast mode bulk. The only reason it ranks low is because visually it is a very clunky figure. There is a lot of stuff left over from the beast mode that just kind of hangs out and does absolutely nothing. So it does get difficult to mess with at times. So it's the only reason why it's this low on the list. It's still a really solid toy with a really good look, like the blue and the purple color schemes. A lot of good about this toy. There are some toys I just rather pick up and play with is all. But for fun features and a fun look, definitely deserves to be on the list. Transmetals are often criticized for their vehicle mode, and I use vehicle mode in air quotes, because most of them didn't really look like anything. They were just wheels that popped out, wings that straightened out, really not a whole lot of like actual vehicles going on. Not true of Waspinator. So first off, gold, black, red, this is already an awesome looking color scheme. This is already a super dynamic figure. It's a super dark and cool looking take on Waspinator. The robot mode is still very recognizable as him. They didn't really like reinvent the wheel like they did a lot of the other Transmetals. It's still very Waspinator in presentation. Bug mode looks fantastic. The gold chrome with the black going through is a great way of presenting the wasp stripes. But then you get that vehicle mode, and it is a legitimate vehicle mode. You can still see the bug parts about it, but the way the wings rearrange into like proper jet wings and tail fins is a fantastic engineering trick. And then an actual cockpit that folds out of the beast mode head. That's really good. That's really good. He's easily like the strongest of any of the vehicle modes I've seen from a Beast Wars Transmetal. He just straight up looks like a jet, and to this day, I will never know why he was never redecoed into Starscream. That's one of the biggest failings of this mold. Like, it's one of the most obvious repaints that never happened. But for what it is still a very, very solid figure, very fun figure. And guess what? There are repaints of this toy that are absolutely gorgeous and look better than the original. But that's not what the list is about. We're about first run molds, and this one is a really, really good one. From here on out, it is mostly leader characters we are going to be discussing. Obviously, the leaders of the Maximals and Predacons, or in some cases, the Cybertrons and the Destrons, obviously they got really good figures. So it's just a matter of what order they go in. So we're going to start with Transmetal Optimus Primal. This one is a really solid figure, and it does have a lot of really fun features. Now, considering the fact that it does have a significant amount of transformation, even though it kind of suffers the same limitations as the original Optimus Primal figure. It's a humanoid mode going into a humanoid mode, meaning it does make it very difficult to make it a little bit more interesting and dynamic, but they do a good job of it. They really do. And then to throw in the Transmetal flight mode of just it's a monkey on a hoverboard, and I think there's something interesting and iconic about that. Fun fact, the whole thing about the like the artillery guns that fold out from his back using the shoulder pauldrons as like the handles. That's something that the TV show invented just for the sake of having a little bit more armament on Optimus Primal. Just noticing it's something the toy could do. It's not official, but the toy can do it, and it adds a little bit more of a cool feature to the character. I would have put him higher on the list if he just did a little bit more, if he was a little bit more involved, because of course, monkey to human, he's very simple. But that said, he does simple very, very well, probably better than most primals. You know, so maybe just a little bit plain to, you know, but still deserves to be at this point on the list. This one might shock you. It kind of shocks me, but when I had to really sit down and evaluate things out, I kind of realized that if I'm going to rank which one is the best of the best, I couldn't put Optimus Primal at the top. Not his optimal form anyway. Which is an interesting thing, because this is the biggest of the Beast Wars toys. It's certainly the most feature-loaded. You've got an accessory weapon. You've got firing missiles. You've got lights and sound gimmicks. This thing is loaded. There's spring-loaded gimmicks to it, too. It's 4-mode conversion. That's a lot. There is a lot getting thrown into this toy, aside from just the fact that it's huge. It's a properly huge figure. It gets this far on the list because it's so feature loaded, but it has to stop here because the toy itself is deceptively simple. The vehicle modes really do come across as just the robot mode lying face down with his arms out and a cockpit folded up. And there's really not a whole lot of dynamic action to them. His beast mode is also the most simple of all the Optimus Primal beast modes. So it's really it's a figure that gets away with doing a lot, mostly just because the forms that it has are exceptionally simple. And part of that might be due to the fact that it's loaded down with all these other gimmicks as well, or they're just trying to work so much in that they had to take some, some of the more interesting stuff out in order to accomplish it. Either way, I do think it is still a good toy. It's still fun to mess with. But when I think about it, for as big and feature-loaded as it is, it suffers in ways that I think spoil the Transformer aspect of the toy itself. I do still like the toy. Obviously, I do. It's halfway up the list. But we do have better ones on the way that I think just present themselves better and do more for their price. So we will acknowledge that he deserves to be on the list, but maybe not any higher than this, though admittedly, it's just my opinion. I told you we have to pop over to the Takara side of things, and this is where it starts, because if I'm going for these figures over either of the primals, I have to admit, I really like Lio Convoy better. This is just a cool figure overall. So yeah, the White Lion is an awesome mode. I like the White Lion. Like, the lion is the king of the jungle, so it makes sense to be like the maximal leader's beast mode. It's something that, if they could have figured out a way to make it work as Optimus Primal, I think that would have worked a little bit better for me personally. But Japan managed to pull it off, and because Japan had such a different engineering styling compared to what Hasbro was coming up with, you get a very different take. You get a lot more of the familiar Optimus Prime colors and shapes to the toy. You get this like unique shoulder pauldron look with the lion head hanging off the side. You've got a ton of little features like the hidden matrix, like the Tonfa blades, like all these the hidden missile launchers in the main. He does a lot for his size. Doesn't need lights and sounds. He just has this like dynamic function to him. And an interesting transformation, because we're turning the side of the lion into the front of his chest. Very different from what Hasbro was putting out. I think it makes for an exceptionally unique figure that is fun to mess with. Did I mention the spinning shield to his lion head? Did I mention that part? Because that's a thing too. It does a lot. For its size and it's for what it is, it does a lot. And I think it just casts a more heroic look than the gorilla. If I'm being honest here, I think and it's not even that it looks more like Optimus Prime. I just think the lion is a better suited beast mode, and it's a really good one for the leader of the Maximals. Or leader of the Cybertrons in this case. Yeah. Always really liked this toy. So absolutely deserves to be up here. Again, just my opinion, but this is a great figure. Now we're really getting into personal preference. Again, we have to just, the whole thing of this is bang for your buck. That's always my criteria when it comes to these top 10s. How good is the toy versus how much I paid for it? And admittedly, Lyle Convoy had a bit of a challenge because it's import price that I have to consider. But at retail level, if we're talking about Transmetals, bang for your buck is really strong in Tarantulas. It's one of the coolest looking Transformers we've ever gotten. Like, the dark tones with those bright green hits create such a creepy vibe to his overall design, which is helped by the spider legs, the spikes on the legs, like the creepy hands and feet. There's so much that is on point about how this toy works, and it's so different from his previous toy. It's an extremely fresh experience on this toy. And then you have just how unique his transformation is. In order to get that bike wheel from his third mode incorporated as the shoulders to his robot mode, that's a bit of genius engineering. Okay, that's some of the most clever engineering in the Transmetal line. And it just makes for such a cool look, to the point where this color, this look, is actually more iconic of Tarantulas than his original all-purple design. When you see Tarantulas these days, when you saw him on IDW, when you saw him in Earthspark, it's this design in these colors modified for the modern designs. That says a lot. It's just an overall really, really cool figure, and absolutely my favorite of the Transmetal Deluxes. Oh, and yeah, when they repaint him, it gets even cooler looking. Fantastic toy all around. It's one of those where, like, this is why I want Transmetals back, so I can get a bigger, better version of that toy. We need to pop over to Japan once again because they released a large leader figure that is just one of the best toys I have ever imported. And the fact that no real, like, accessible repaint of this toy exists and no modern version is a crime. Let's talk about Beast Wars the Second Galvatron. Hoo boy. So, aside from so two-tone purple and gold. It's a very, very regal color scheme. Looks really, really good. The silvers and blacks work really, really well into it as well. Pops of red. It's a very involved color scheme. A lot going on, but all of it tends to work. All of it works well to create this really cool looking regal villain figure. And the regalness carries over in how he keeps his bulk as a cape in both modes, actually, as his dragon mode's wings act more like a cape rather than functioning wings themselves. Also, of course, beats Megatron in America to the punch on having a dragon mode by a year. Also, the fact that, yeah, you've got spring-loaded gimmicks, and then you've got, the pinching claw that you can do with the wings, and then there's the vehicle mode. And unlike the Transmetals, it's a proper drill tank vehicle mode with a spinning drill on top of all of this. So they worked a spinning drill gimmick into everything as well. It's just a cool figure. It's just such a cool figure. I'm so upset that there's never been any other release for this at all. There might have been like a lucky draw or something out there, but there's so much repaint potential in it. It's such a cool looking toy. And there's a little bit of gold plastic in it, so I would like something that is not designed with gold plastic, thank you. But for everything else, oh my god, it's so good. It is so good, and it's one of the first Transformer toys I ever imported. Brilliant toy, deserves to have all of the modern versions. If you've watched my previous Beast Wars videos, then number one should not come as any surprise to you. We've seen big gimmick-loaded toys. We have seen big electronic nightmares of figures. However, sometimes it's best to keep it simple. My number one figure from 1998 is Transmetal Megatron, just the original. It's a beautiful figure. For starters, the copper, the black, and the dark purple is just hitting really, really hard on this design. I love how it looks. I love the huge shoulder pauldrons that give him a very powerful image. I love how they handled the tail weapon, as it can be something of a railgun or fusion weapon, and it can be something of a long, like, armored glaive as well. The transformation is a lot of fun. It's a very tucked in, very solid figure. You come up with a very nice T-Rex mode. The vehicle mode side, okay, maybe a little bit goofy with the rollerblades. It's a very simple Transmetal style vehicle. But the overall toy experience behind it, I think, is exceptionally nice. And just overall, I think the best Beast Wars Megatron ever turned out. Now, of course, we are selecting to ignore the American version's engineering problem that caused him to be fragile. This is, of course, the Takara version on screen that does not have that issue. But either way, it just presents itself so well, and everything that it needs to do at its price and size, it does exceptionally well. It's just a toy that really, especially for 1998, doesn't do anything wrong. And for that, I gotta give it the #1 spot. Still my favorite Beast Wars toy, and it's going to take a lot of convincing to get me to dethrone it. So that is my #1, Transmetal Megatron. And that is my list. I think this one is a very disputable one. I think a lot of people will put Optimal Optimus a lot higher. I think people were going to put Galvatron at #1, Tarantulas maybe a little bit lower. Of course, it's all just one geek's opinion. You're free to have your own and discuss it below as long as you're keeping it civil. So you go ahead and do that. I have another video to prep for you for tomorrow. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time.